Hey guys, it's Kevin again, and this is going to be for a review of something that I don't know if you guys know about. If you guys know, every few months or so, Amazon puts out different pilots, like test pilots for shows, so we can test out which one we want to see. And basically, you take a survey and you watch the shows. You then take a survey, say which show you want to be, a full season, and Amazon will think about it and basically they'll make a decision of what show they want to put to a full season. So I decided that I would do that with a show, and the one show that intrigued me the most out of every show was the show The Man in the High Castle. Now, The Man in the High Castle, let me explain why it intrigued me so much. The plot of the show is so interesting. The plot of The Man in the High Castle is basically that, this is all I heard about The Man in the High Castle. It's basically a what-if show. What would happen if the Allied powers had lost World War II? So basically, we, the U.S., lost World War II, and Japan and Germany took over the United States. That's basically the plot of The Man in the High Castle. That right there, I'm like, I am totally in. I need to see the show right now, and oh my god, guys. Thank God I check out the show. This show is fucking amazing. This is by far Amazon's best show. I have been impressed by Amazon before, but this right here, this is Amazon's best show. This show, if it does not get renewed for a full season, I'm going to be extremely surprised because this show is already amazing and I love it. But let's just get into it. I need to talk about how it started and everything. What happened, and let's get into it because overall I absolutely loved the first episode. Everything about it was fantastic, and this has a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes. If that doesn't tell me that everyone's loving it, I don't know what does. So let's get to it. So first of all, I gotta say the intro of the show is awesome. It's a slowed down version of Edelweiss from The Sound of Music, and it's so awesome the way they do that. I think it is an awesome intro, and I love the intro. So we begin in 1962 in New York City, which is now the Greater Nazi Reich. It's where the Nazis have taken over New York City. It's interesting to see what's happening here because the Nazis have taken over New York City, and it's home to Germany now. So in a movie theater, we see the audience watching a propaganda clip on how the United States was lucky to be under the Germans, and sort of like how, the Nazis are showing that them taking over is actually an advantage for the United States. So we meet this young man, Joe Blake, who he's given a card with a symbol on one side, and on the other side were written the words, Laritz Manager, 4112 East Motoc, and the young man then took a train across New York City and asked for Mr. Don Warren, who, after making sure he was not a spy, because at first he thinks this guy's a spy. He thinks that he was a spy for Germany, and he's like, oh, no, don't worry about it, I'm not a spy. He then welcomes Joe to the Resistance, and he was then ordered to take a truck across the Reich to Canyon City, and it was located in the neutral zone where the Rocky Mountains were. So he was then told that their contact will go to him if it's safe. So he's then told that he was delivering coffee makers. They gave him several pills which he could take whenever he felt sleepy so that he would not fall asleep on the road. However, just right then, this right here, already I'm into it, just right when he climbed in the driver's seat, boom, they're ambushed by Nazi officers. He quickly speeds away. Mr. Warren is held captive and executed all the workers in his office and factory. So you can clearly see that it's a pretty messed up world. It's really messed up. It's nothing that you would ever want to happen, but it's really interesting as well because honestly, I was thinking, are we still going to see concentration camps, or are still going to be, really thinking that these Nazis are still available really got me to question a lot of things. I was thinking, are there still concentration camps? Is Adolf Hitler still alive? Because honestly, guys, the World War II is a very fascinating time period to me. I find it very fascinating, just, how the Nazis work and things like that. It's just very interesting to me. It's disgusting and disturbing and vile what they did, but it's just interesting, especially with something like this. It's really a what-if show, so they can do whatever they want with it, which I really like. It's also based on a book, which I didn't tell you guys, but it's based on a book, and I really like that about it. So then we meet our new character in San Francisco, which is actually home to the Japanese now. It's called the Japanese Pacific States, and we meet our main character, Juliana Crane. She is walking back home from a good session of Aikido at a nearby dojo, and on the way home, she stopped by a Chinese herbalist shop in order to get some herbs to make it to a medicinal tea for her mother, and while she's there, her younger sister Trudy came in and hugged her. She told her that she had just gotten a new job and that she would have to go out of town to do it, and at home, basically, Juliana's mother could not understand why her daughter likes things that were Japanese. Because, they hate everything Japanese, obviously, and since they were, currently under their rule, Juliana doesn't really see a problem with the Japanese, which I find very interesting about her character. And I thought that was, really interesting because, I mean, they're Japanese and she doesn't have a problem with them. But then we meet who I think is probably one of the most interesting characters on the show. He's not the most interesting. The most interesting we're going to get to. Well, I already talked about the most interesting. I'm going to talk about the big twist with the most interesting character. But this character is by far going to be one of the best characters on the show. Because she then left for a bar where she met up with Frank, who, this is her longtime boyfriend who she's living with. And he became very nervous about the fact that the Fuhrer, and we find out right here that Adolf Hitler is still alive, but he's getting older and older by the second. And he's hoping that he's going to die, but he's not sure. But it turned out that Frank is actually a Jew, and he's hiding his heritage because of the possible horrible things that might happen. Now, this makes me think that concentration camps are definitely still available. I don't know if that's true, but I think because of what he just said, that there are still concentration camps, in the world. Definitely, that makes me think that's what's going on there. Because if that's true, then I think that the Nazis of Germany would want to execute. I mean, think about it. Think about what would happen if Germany won. I'm pretty sure that Adolf Hitler would just go airborne on the world. He would go airborne, and he would have probably killed all the Germans, all the Jews in the entire world, because he hated Jewish people. He wouldn't just go after Germany. He'd go after the whole world. So I definitely feel like concentration camps are now all over the world. But they don't actually talk about that in this episode. But that's something I definitely want them to explore, is are there still concentration camps available? And what Frank said definitely makes me think that they could be. So as soon as his coworker and good friend Ed McCarthy showed up, Juliana decided to go home. He then told Frank, Ed then tells Frank that he might know the Fuhrer that Adolf Hitler currently had Parkinson's, which was actually rumored, which I find very interesting, and that means that he could die very soon. So moreover, if a new Fuhrer filled his spot, they might wipe out the whole West Coast, which would be insane if that happened. And basically he's telling Frank that if someone else is elected, then it's going to get even worse. Then, more Jews are going to be executed, and that's going to be insane to see. And I definitely feel like that's going to happen in the show. Because, I mean, we're in 1962 right now, and if Adolf Hitler really does have Parkinson's, he really could die any second. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. We'll have to see what happens there. But that definitely is very interesting. So before Juliana leaves the apartment, she stopped by. Also, the other thing I want to say about Frank and Juliana that I really like is before they were talking about Adolf Hitler, she was talking to him about possibly starting a family and having children. Because she wants to start a family. She wants to have children with him. They can't get married, obviously, because he's Jewish, and they can't do that, but she wants to start a family, she wants to have children, but he does not want to do that because he's afraid that he's not going to be able to be a father to these children because of the possible impact of what's going to happen to him. And also, if they're children, then they could end up being Jewish, and that wouldn't end up well for him either. So I find that very interesting as well, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing if they touch upon that again. So Juliana leaves for a bar, and she met, I just read that. So before Juliana could enter the apartment, she was stopped by her sister Trudy, and she instructed to take her bag and to immediately go inside her apartment, and Trudy's then ran off, shot dead by several Japanese soldiers who chased after her, and yeah, already a huge character killed off in the first episode. Like, it really shows the risks this show is willing to take, and I love that about the show. I love how risky the show is. It's willing to take a lot of risks, and I find that just awesome. So inside the apartment, Juliana finds this newsreel labeled "The Grasshopper Lies Heavy," which Trudy gave to her. That was what was in the bag, was this newsreel. And this is where we get the plot going, and this is extremely interesting. I find this so interesting, and when they introduce this, I'm like, this is going to get awesome. She attached it to the projector, watched it over and over again. Each time she did so, she teared up and smiled. She watched it until Frank arrived. She then told him that it's a newsreel which showed a different version of events. You see, in this newsreel, the United States it's basically what happened to us. The United States had won against the Germans, and the Nazi regime had fallen, and that President Roosevelt was still alive. Which is huge. President Roosevelt, we find out, is dead. They killed President Roosevelt, which I never thought that would happen, but yeah, they killed President Roosevelt. So there's no president in the world either because the Germans are taking over. So I find this very interesting. I'm interested in seeing where this is going to go because it brings up something new to the show. Is how do these people know this? I mean, It's very interesting because Frank insists that it's not real. He doesn't think any of it's real, but it was a movie made by a man known as the Man in the High Castle, which is why this show is called The Man in the High Castle, because that's who made it. That's this guy's alias. So the question is, who could the Man in the High Castle be? That's what I want to know. So she broke the news that she got from Trudy, who got shot by the Japanese on the street, and he then instructed her to go to the police station the next day, but the police would know she had nothing to do with it, so that she would not be killed, as Trudy apparently had been part of the resistance. Which the resistance was a group that basically, I'm trying to figure out what the resistance, let me find, the resistance World War II. Okay. The resistance occurred in every, occupied country. They basically were the ones that didn't like the war. They wanted to stop the war and things like that, and they wanted to defeat Germany. So that's why her sister was killed. However, Juliana, luckily, is not part of that, so she has nothing to really worry about because she was not part of that. Her sister was part of that, but she was not. So really, Juliana has nothing to worry about, which I like. Which is interesting, too. So the next morning, Juliana found a bus ticket among trees, thinking it was a ticket to Canyon City, and on the back was written Sunrise Diner 12.5. So she then saw Frank and told him that she would be the one to go to the police. However, she did not such thing. She packed her things, and she placed in the reel in a case labeled Popeye. So she basically just makes this thing look like a cartoon. Of course, she doesn't want to make it seem, she doesn't want to seem suspicious like she has this. So she just makes it look like it's a cartoon, and she leaves the necklace that Frank had given her and left, and basically then on the way to the bus station, she stopped by Tony, and this is one of her admirers at the dojo, and she had promised that they would have some tea together, but told him that they would definitely do that the next time. So I find this interesting, as she's actually pretty tight with these Japanese people. I mean, they're not rude to her, they're nice to her, and I find that interesting about Juliana's character. You know, she doesn't really see the Japanese as bad people, and I think that's because the Germans are really the bad people to her, because of course, you know, the love of her life is Jewish, and they could go after him. So obviously she's worried about that, and I definitely think that's very interesting, and I like that about the show. So at the Nazi embassy in the Pacific States, Trade Commissioner Nobusuke Tagomi and the Nazi ambassador discussed the particulars regarding the furniture of the room for the arrival of the Crown Prince and his wife, who would be staying at the embassy in 2 days' time. So after the Japanese had left, the two Germans contemplated it was a matter of time until they would be able to take over the entire North America. And meanwhile, in the elevator, Tagomi seemed a little bit disturbed, and it was especially after the Oracle had just informed that they were about to experience some darkness. So this really gets him worried about what could possibly happen to him, especially because it's the Nazi embassy, and Tagomi is Japanese, so he's very worried about what could definitely happen. What I think that's trying to show is that the Japanese are not going to be taking over the world for that long. It's going to be full-on German. I definitely feel like Germans are the main antagonists here, because while they focus on Japan, they don't seem like the bad guys. They seem like the guys that, yeah, they've taken over the world, but they're not bad guys. You know, it seems like to me, it's like the Germans are going to be the main antagonists of the show, which is, if that's true, that's going to be very interesting. So then we meet up with that Mr. Warren guy, who is at Rikers Island Prison in New York City. He is being tortured and told him that the truck that had left contained coffee makers and was headed off to Alabama. However, SS Obergrupper, that means the, leader of the Nazis, John Smith, he had informed him that they knew exactly where the truck was going and what it was holding. So I find that very interesting about his character. And already, I mean, Rufus Sewell, the guy who plays John Swift, is just so disturbingly awesome. Like, then on the road, Joe's tire gets blown. He's then helped out by a helpful and kind Nazi officer, which is very interesting about his character. He's a Nazi officer, but he fought for the United States during the war. So basically, he doesn't like what the Nazis are doing, but he's working with them in order for his safety, which I find very interesting about his character, and I like that about his character. A little bit different. I think that's interesting, and it was definitely interesting to see what was going to happen there. So back in San Francisco, Juliana enters the station. She then accidentally bumps into a Japanese guard, and she was saved by this man who knew Trudy and had given her the bag. And this man that she's talking to, I think is the man in the High Castle. I do. I mean, why else would he give her the bag if he wouldn't have made the video? I mean, clearly he is the man in the High Castle. I really do feel like he is. So Juliana insisted on going in Trudy's stead, and she was just told that their contact would approach her if it was safe, and she then boarded the bus headed for Canyon City. So basically they're telling her, stay out of this, don't worry, we don't want you getting hurt or anything. So basically they're telling her, you had nothing to do with this, and you weren't part of the resistance, so don't do something that could get you killed. And I like that, but at the same time, I mean, Juliana seems like she doesn't really have a voice here. It really doesn't seem like it. It seems like she doesn't really have a voice in this world, and I find that very interesting about her character. So I like that. I don't like that for her, but I like that she, wants to have a voice and she's independent. I definitely like that about her character. So Tajami receives the Swiss businessman Victoria Baines, and she's at the Hirohito airport. Not Victoria Baines, Victor Baines at the Hirohito airport. And in the car, Tajami confirms that Baines was truly Captain Rudolf Wegener. And Tajami then told him that the man he was going to meet up with would arrive in 2 days' time. And it was said that this person would be arriving with the crown prince and princess. And Tajami and Rudolph talk about how worried they were. It was because they knew that when the Fuhrer dies, there would be a vacuum of power. And whoever succeeds Hitler would definitely seek to bomb the Japanese out of the Americas. Which... that says right there what I thought it's going to say, because that proves that the Japanese are in as much danger as the U.S. are, which makes the Japanese much more vulnerable, and I really liked about their characters. I mean, really, everybody's worried about what could happen, and as I said, I definitely feel like Germany is the main villain here, because Japanese... they're sort of working with the Americas in a way. They sort of are. I mean, they're not enemies with them, but yet at the same time, it's like they're kind of worried, they're going to attack and everything. But the Japanese are just as vulnerable as them, and I love that. It really gets you to like the Japanese characters more, and it makes you more worried for them, and I like that they did that, because I really am interested in seeing where that storyline's going to go, definitely. So Frank and Edward are working hard in the factory in order to make Americana goods like old-time guns, and the Japanese seem to like these kind of things. Because of this, Mr. Wyndham Marsden refused to allow Frank to make jewelry despite his designs and drawings being good. He doesn't want him to make jewelry, and he wants him to make, because the Japanese don't really like that. And I'm interested in, I don't know why Frank likes to make jewelry, but I think it's because maybe for Juliana's sake. I mean, I kind of feel like Frank does not tell them that he has, that he's living with Juliana. I feel like they don't know that Juliana's in his life. I don't know why, but he doesn't mention Juliana around them, so I don't know if he wants to make it for Juliana. I don't know. That's interesting, though. So Juliana is then approached by this other white woman, Katie Owens, who she began to pass herself off as her half-sister, Trudy. And when the bus made a short pit stop during the night, she awoke to discover that Katie had stolen all of her things, and she had not stolen the reel, though, which Juliana hid under her blouse. So why'd she steal her things? I don't know. Maybe she's working for Germany. I don't know. Maybe she's a spy for the SS, for the SS. I don't know. But definitely there's something intriguing about this woman. I don't think that Juliana should trust her, and I'm definitely interested in seeing what exactly happened to, why exactly she stole all her stuff. So meanwhile, just before the checkpoint, Joe looks over the truck to figure out what he was really carrying, and underneath the truck he discovers the film reel, entitled The Grasshopper Lies Heavy. However, as all his papers were in order, they let him into the neutral zone. If you don't know what the neutral zone is, that is where the Germans and Japan both rule the world. Both rule the Americas. There's one section with Germany, one section with the Japanese, and the other section is the neutral zone, which I find very interesting. So back in San Francisco, Frank discovered that Juliana had left for Canyon City, and the next morning, Inspector Kaido and his men trashed the entire place and asked where Juliana was. He then told them that she had been at the dojo, and however, they learned that she actually had not been there. So they had a beating out of Tony, and they roughly arrested Frank by shoving him inside the back of the car, and nearby the man who had given Trudy her bag was captured as well. So the man in the high castle has been captured. I definitely feel like the man in the high castle is the one that gave Trudy her bag, and I'm very interested in seeing his character. We're not seeing too much of his character, and I like that because he's very mysterious, and he's a very mysterious character. I'm interested in seeing where they go with this character, so I already really like his character. His character is very intriguing, and I really like that about him. So in New York City, the Obergrupper ordered that Mr. Warren be flogged to death and his body was dumped on the streets. Such a hard scene to watch. Literally, they're talking. They have no problem with it. They're laughing about it. Like, they love what's going on here. It's so hard to watch because, I mean, anytime I think about these concentration camps, it just makes me sick because it's just like you think about it and it's like how could the world have been like that once? It's so disturbing that the world was like that and that they allowed this, but this actually happened. I mean, not this, but this would have happened. Think about it. It really makes you sick to your stomach because it makes you think this would have happened if we did not win the war. Really, it really makes you think that. So I find that very interesting about this, definitely. So at the sunrise dinner, Juliana runs into a little trouble with the waiter. This is basically the end of the episode. She told him that she could not pay him as all her things had gotten stolen. And Joe, who enters the diner, decides to pay for her. Because, she's getting in some trouble with that. And he then follows around and gives her a bottle of juice, which I'm actually drinking juice right now. That was kind of funny. That when I said juice, I'm drinking juice. So, she then tried to steer the conversation away as she would be able to find out if he was the contact that the man earlier had mentioned. Because, of course, she wants to know who that is. It seemed like he was just a good person, that he was a good citizen, that he was being nice to her. However, we get to the best twist of the episode. This, literally, I'm like, I need another episode right now. This made me want another episode, like, ASAP. I need another episode. You cannot leave me on this cliffhanger. I need to know what's going on here. He checks his watch, he excuses himself, he places a phone call to the Obergruppenführer, and he informed him that everything was going smoothly, and that the Obergruppenführer told him that his father would be proud of him. So yes, Joe is a spy for the SS, he's working with Germany, and shit is gonna go down. And then at the end of the episode, back in San Francisco, Tag Jami once again consulted his Oracle sticks and looked grim after checking out what it meant. And that's the end of the episode. And oh my god, guys, such a good premiere. Honestly, this was one of the best pilots I've seen in a very long time, and I am sold on this show. I could definitely see the show becoming one of my favorite shows on TV, definitely. I mean, I absolutely love this show. I love where it's headed. I love where it's going. I just find the show to be just amazing. Let's get into the acting in the show, which, where do you even begin with the acting? Everybody in the show is absolutely fantastic. First of all, Alexa Davalos as Juliana Crane is just awesome. You sympathize with her character, and I like that she's friends with the Japanese. It's just very interesting because nobody else is, and her mother hates them, and because they killed, I didn't mention this, they killed Juliana's father during the war. That's why she hates them. So I find that very interesting about her character, and I like that I like her character, definitely. She's very interesting, and she's a good lead as well. I definitely like that about her character. Rupert Evans as Frank. Frank is definitely in for a lot of trouble. I mean, he's taken into custody, and we don't know what's going to happen to him, definitely. I definitely feel like he's going to eventually have to tell them that he is Jewish, and something bad is definitely going to happen to him if that happens. He's going to end up like, what happened to Mr. Warren. He's going to end up like him. So I'm definitely worried for Frank, and that's going to get interesting. Luke Kleintank as Joe Blake is just awesome because now his character is so mysterious, and now that we know what's actually happening, like he's working for the SS, it's just such an amazing reveal. And now we know that Juliana's in danger because so many things could happen now that she's with Joe. If she tells him too much, if she tells Joe that Frank is that her boyfriend is Jewish, it could end up terribly for Frank. Frank could end up killed, and that couldn't be good for him either. So I'm definitely interested in seeing what's going to happen there. DJ Qualis as Ed McCarthy. I like his character too. I think he's very good as well. But Carrie Haraki Tajwa as Nobusuke Tajimi, you really feel bad for Tajimi's character because he could get killed. I definitely feel like Tagumi is going to be killed in the show, definitely. Because, I mean, what's going to happen to him. And then finally, Rufus Sewell as John Smith is such a great villain. He's so scary, you fear him. It honestly makes me feel as uncomfortable I did while watching Schindler's List. This show really reminds me of Schindler's List and how disturbing that show was. And I think the reason the show's so good is because of the directing. The directing is fantastic. And also, I don't know if you guys know this, the executive producer of the show is actually Ridley Scott, who he worked on a lot of Philip K. Dick's novels. He worked on a lot of them. And, if you don't know, Philip K. Dick actually wrote Blade Runner. So, Ridley Scott knows what he's doing here. The writing in the show is absolutely fantastic. The screenplay is so good. I love about the screenplay. It's such an interesting show. And again, it just makes you think about what would happen here. I'm definitely interested in seeing if concentration camps are still available because they didn't mention that. And I think that concentration camps are still there in this world. The directing is fantastic. Also, is Adolf Hitler gonna die? I could definitely see that happening. The score to this show is so good. It's so eerie at times. It's so epic. It's just an awesome score, honestly. Just such an awesome score. The editing of the show is awesome. The show was an hour long. It went by like that. I was so into it. Nothing dragged on. Everything was amazing. I loved the directing to the show. The directing to the show is just awesome. Everything about the show is awesome. If this show does not get picked up for a, for a full season, I don't know what's going to happen. I've seen many things on Amazon. This is by far Amazon's best show, and I'm going to talk about why Amazon needs to pick up the show. First of all, I've heard out of all the pilots, this is the only one that's actually really, really good. Also, the show is very different from anything else Amazon has done before because it's very dark, it's very thought-provoking, it's very interesting, it's not boring. I mean, some of the hour shows they put out, like Hand to God, oh my god, that was boring. I watched Hand to God, it was boring. This is not boring. This is interesting, this is well done, this has amazing acting, it's thought-provoking, it makes you worried for the characters. Every single character I care about right now. I want to find out who the man in the High Castle is. I think the man in the High Castle is the man that gave the bag to Trudy, but I'm not sure. We'll see what happens there. But other than that, guys, I totally love the show. I'm so into it already. Please, guys, if you have not checked out this first episode, please check it out right now. Go on Amazon, take the survey, tell them you love the show. I told them I love the show, and I highly recommend you guys check out the show. If you haven't already, please check it out right now. But that's my review. Hope you guys enjoy it. I might watch another Amazon pilot at some point. I'm not watching one tonight, though, because I don't know if I have time. Actually, I might have time. I don't know. We'll see. But I'll see you guys in my next video, which will be my review for tonight's episode of The Walking Dead. So I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.